Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Kisho Kishori Jaya Kisho Kishori Jaya Kisho Kishori Jaya Kisho Kishori Jaya Goranitai 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 Jaya Goranitai Jaya Jagannatha Jaya Jagannatha Baladeva Jaya Subhadra Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Jaya Gurudev Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Hari Bol Hari Bol Nitai Gaur Hari Bol Jai Om Vishnu Jayam Vishnu Pada Paramam Sapribrajagachaya Astuta Srishimati Divangre Sesi Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnu Pada Paramam Sapribrajagachaya Astuta Srishimati Divangre Sesi Bhaktivedanta Siddhanta Sasti Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नामाचार्य श्रीदास ठाकुर जी जय। प्रेम से हो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंद राधा कुंद गिरि गोवर्धन की जय। गंगा माई यमुना माई की जय। भक्ति देवी तुलसी महारानी की जय। हरे कृष्णा महामंत्र की जय। सामवेद भक्तवृंद की जय। हरि नाम संकीर्तन की जय। They go Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All gracious assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All gracious assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All gracious assembled devotees Hare Krishna. All gracious Sri Guru and Gauranga. All gracious Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Namaste Narasimhaya Praladaladanayine Hiranyakashipurvaksha Shilatanka Nakalaye Dona Simha Paratona Shinga Yato Yato Yamita Tona Simha Bahena Simha Hridayena Simha Bahena Simha Hridayena Shinga Narasimhamadim Sharanam Prapadye Tava Karakalavare Nakam Adbhuta Shringa Lalita Hiranyakashipu Tanubringa Keshavadita Narahari Rupa Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jai Jagadish Hare Jaya Narsimhadev Jaya Narsingadev Jaya Narsimhadev Jaya Narsimhadev Jaya Narsingadev Jaya Narsimhadev Jaya Narsimhadev Jaya Narsimhadev Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Prahlad Maharaj Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Srila Prabhupada Bhakti Vignavinashi Narsinghadev Bhagwan ki Bhaktara Shri Prahlad Maharaj ki Nitai Go Premanande Hari Bo Hare Krishna everyone. Hare Krishna. One more time. Hare Krishna. Welcome to our Krishna Fest program or Sunday Feast program, right? Yeah, sorry, name change. I'm doing the announcements today because we have a very special speaker, the one who usually does the announcements. His Grace Yashodanandan Prabhu. But I'm going to first, before I speak about the speaker, we have a list of things to share with you. So first, today is December 1st, which is, last month of the year. And it's a special month because one of the reasons it's a special month is because this is the month when the world famous conversation between Arjuna and Krishna took place. The Gita was spoken over 5,000 years ago this month. And next weekend, is when the Gita Jayanti is going to be celebrated. The time when Gita was spoken. And that's going to be Saturday, December 7th, so about 6 days from now. And the program is going to be in this temple room, there's going to be a chanting of the entire Bhagavad-Gita from 9 p.m. Yeah. Okay, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. Sorry, I have difficulty reading my phone notes. So it's 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. on next Saturday, Gita recitation. Very auspicious to participate in that. Please come. And then right after that, from 12 p.m. or 12 noon through 10 p.m., there's going to be a 10-hour kirtan. So if you'd like 2020, which is a big year, 2020 is it's the start of the new decade. If you'd like that to be very auspicious for yourself, consider attending this program, which will be a 10-hour kirtan starting from, again, 12 noon through 10 p.m. So that's next Saturday. Along with this Gita Jayanti, we also have a retreat that's going to be held in ISKCON, Chicago from December 20th to December 25th, titled the Winter Retreat. It'll be organized, they're going to have special speakers, including His Holiness Rompada Swami and His Grace Deva Madhava Prabhu. Shishi Kishore Kishori Ki Jai. And if you'd like to sign up for that, are there any... Yashodanandan, do you know how people can sign up for the winter retreat? Okay, so if you go to the website, there's registration for the winter retreat there. December is also another special month because we have the December Marathon, the classic ISKCON endeavor to distribute as many transcendental literatures to the public in general. So this year there's a goal of distributing 60,000 books. Last year they were able to sell or distribute 53,000 books. 53,000 books. So this year 60,000. If you'd like to sponsor books so they can go out, if you don't have the time to distribute themselves or yourself, you're welcome to talk to the book table out in the lobby, and they can give you more information on that. Today's Sunday feast is sponsored by Kumar Murukurti in honor of his brother, late Prasad Murukurti, and he's requesting the kind prayers of the Vaishnavas. Thank you. And if the sponsor is here, we'd like to invite you to. There's a gift for you at the lobby. Okay, so this coming Tuesday is Giving Tuesday on Facebook. On Giving Tuesday, yeah, where donations given to ISKCON Chicago have a chance to be matched by Facebook, and the event starts Tuesday at 7 a.m. sharp and will be matched until 7 million. Total across all nonprofits participating has been matched. So if you're planning a year-end donation, well, it could be doubled if you do it through Facebook. So that's this is the final announcement before we introduce our speaker for today. His Grace Yashodanandan Prabhu. Please give him a big Haribol. So he's been practicing Krishna consciousness for 12 years or so, 13 years? You don't know?
I don't know.
Something like that. And he's just become a father again. And despite being a father and having not slept last night because his baby is too small, he's still here to speak to us about the topic for this month. So, very dedicated devotee. He's the one who leads the Sunday feast every week and keeps us enlivened and encouraged to keep coming back every Sunday. So, very grateful to him. Very sincere devotee, as far as I can estimate, and and just a very sweet person. So, he's going to be speaking about the archer's dilemma, which is Arjuna. Is the topic for today. Arjuna is the hero in the Bhagavad-Gita, so he's going to be speaking about Arjuna. Again, big Haribol for him. Haribol!
Well, wow, I think that's going to be more enlivening than, hopefully that's not the most enlivening part of this evening's discussion, but thank you very much for the kind introduction. Just a request, if everyone could please come forward. I did take a shower today, so that's always a good start. So please come forward, please come forward, please come forward. For those of you on that side, it might get a little bit crowded as the evening progresses, so it might be more comfortable if you take advantage of the space over here. Otherwise, thank you very much. And I'm both feeling very excited and nervous to be introducing the capstone hero for this year's ISKCON Chicago Be a Hero theme in the form of Arjuna. So even just 1 month is not enough to properly frame the personality of Arjuna, one of the main heroes of both Mahabharata and also just as famously within the Bhagavad-Gita. So thank you for coming here to join in this journey as we explore the personality that is Arjuna through the Archer's Dilemma. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jan Vallabha Girivaradari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Natira Vanachari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Okay. So I wanted to introduce you to this personality that is Arjuna through the topic of the archer's dilemma. So as Yamuna Jivan Prabhu nicely alluded to, the archer is Arjuna. So luckily that wasn't a big spoiler alert. Oh. And we're going to be exploring this concept of the archer's dilemma from a few different vantage points. One, just the general idea of the dilemma an archer from a practical perspective faces, and then also the different kinds of dilemmas that we may experience when looking to Arjuna as that hero that we're highlighting this month, as that personality that we can try to imbibe certain qualities from. Quick show of hands. How many of us have ever shot a bow and arrow before? Okay. That's a lot more hands than I was expecting, but that's exciting. Yeah, it's enjoyable, right? How many of us were able to successfully hit the target? Okay, smaller group. I did not raise my hands. I was thrilled if I even hit anything on the general vicinity of the target, or if I could even find my arrow afterwards. So kudos to everybody that raised your hand for the second question. So it's challenging. It's a very mechanics-based sport or skill. It requires high levels of precision, so you have to be conscious of the weather conditions, making sure that even if you may have a perfect line of sight when you're placing the arrow on the, or knocking the arrow, is it? I think it's called. And then making sure that the movement is perfectly steady so that where you're pointing the arrow is actually the direction it gets released. You have to make sure the arrow shaft is perfectly straight or compensate for it. So there's a lot of different factors that go into being able to hit that target. And this is just when we're in an archery range. So very controlled condition. You're not having to get worried or worked up about being shot at, or who's going to be coming from behind you to attack you or challenge you to a battle. So in itself, it's pretty difficult. And now couple that with a battlefield scene. It's complete chaos. Everybody is attacking each other, fighting to the death, lots of loud noises, screaming, shouting, yelling. There's the pressure, the adrenaline, the intensity, the emotional intensity of such an experience. And trying to hit your target in the midst of all of that is even more amazing. So Arjuna is renowned as the supreme archer, the best archer. And there are many stories highlighting Arjuna's miraculous feats as that supreme archer. And we're going to talk about a few of them, hopefully leading us to a common understanding or conclusion of these different pastimes. Now, in addition to the pressure of what's going on in the battlefield, in the times when Arjuna was there, they would also imbue certain mantras, certain powers within these arrows. So now we've got this whole complete circumstance that requires intense amounts of concentration. You have the chaos of battle, having to think about the mechanics of how to physically shoot the arrow, and also then recalling these mantras to imbue a certain power or potency to the arrow that you're going to fire, all the while defending yourself. No easy task. And so Arjuna is imbibed with many, many admirable qualities. Some of them which are going to be shown here, like his resolve, determination, fearlessness, unmatched skill, opulence, morality, extraordinary power, strength, focus, concentration, the ability to be very present for what's going on. Now, with the distractions of modern life, that quality in itself of the ability to focus, to be present, it's very popular today, but it's a very practical lesson for ourselves on how much we can accomplish just by being focused. So, with all those qualities, Arjuna also had the great fortune of being Krishna's both cousin, son of Queen Kunti, and Lord Indra. So he was the cousin of Krishna, or God himself, as well as an intimate friend of Krishna. Now, one of the aspirations is that we can see Krishna in friendly terms as a friend. Not that necessarily we go onto the altar and pat Krishna on the back, hey buddy, nothing like that. We're leagues away from any kind of that kind of intimacy. We're practicing sadhana bhakti, or that devotional service unto Krishna in practice. So, imbibed with all those qualities is someone with a close relationship, a close friendship with Krishna. And so he had unmatched skill, unmatched power, and he was devoted to the desires, he was attuned to the desires of Krishna. And so all of those factors came together in this first story from Mahabharata that I wanted to highlight, which was when Arjuna was a youth, along with his other 4 brothers, the Pandavas, as well as their cousins, led by Duryodhana and some of the other, who I'll refer to as the Kurus, or the Kauravas. So their teacher, Dronacharya, he led a school that taught all of the royal class the martial skills, so archery, sword fighting, and other practical skills that the warrior class needed to understand, to know. And our Dronacharya decided, I want to have a competition. And so to test the power, to test how much my students are learning. And so he first called up Yudhisthira Maharaj, who was the eldest and the leader of the 5 brothers, the Pandavas, Arjuna of which is the 3rd. And he told Yudhisthira Maharaj, there's this decoy of a bird. You can kind of see up there toward the top right of the image on the screen. It's a decoy bird, so don't worry, no birds were harmed in the actual rendering of this pastime. And Dronacharya instructed, fire this arrow into the eye of the bird. Now again, going back to the difficulty of shooting a bow and arrow. Bird's not very big, and eye is even smaller. Very precise target. And so Yudhisthira Maharaj, he picked up his bow, he placed the arrow on it, and before he fired, Dronacharya asked him, do you see the bird? Yes. What else do you see? Well, I see the tree, I see the branches, I see my brothers. And Dronacharya heard enough. He said, okay, don't fire your arrow. Please stand down. Okay. Then he called up Duryodhana. Duryodhana, the leader of the Kurus, the 100 brothers, from a rival faction, we'll call it. And he asked Duryodhana, do you see the bird? Yes. What else do you see? Well, I see the trees, I see the branches, I see my brothers, I see everything in the general vicinity. And Dronacharya, once again, he told him, okay, don't fire your arrow. Please go back. And one by one, all of the other princes in the class went up, and they had very similar responses. And Dronacharya called on Arjuna last. And Dronacharya asked Arjuna, do you see the bird? Yes. And what else do you see? Who knows what Arjuna says? Yeah. Both, yes. So he doesn't see anything else. And then Dronacharya asks him, okay, describe the bird. And Arjuna says, I can't describe the bird. I only see the eye. And Dronacharya, as his teacher, was immensely pleased by this. And so he told Arjuna, all right, fire. And Arjuna hit the eye of the target. And Dronacharya only allowed Arjuna to do it because Arjuna was the only one that had that necessary focus to attain such a seemingly impossible target, an impossible feat. And later, shortly after, they were all taking a bath in the river, and Arjuna and the others, they were playing, splashing in the water, and Dronacharya, his leg got caught by a crocodile in the water. Very powerful jaws. And Dronacharya, he's a very capable teacher. He could have very easily gotten himself out of that situation, but he wanted to treat it as a teaching moment for his students once again. And so he told his students, help me, a crocodile's bitten my leg. And everybody froze. Has anyone been in a situation like that? Something is just so horrific. It strikes us so close to home that we just freeze. Yeah, I do that a lot. Well, one person didn't freeze, and that's this month's hero, Arjuna. He immediately sprang into action, cut the body of the crocodile into 5 pieces using his arrows, freeing Dronacharya's leg. And what happened is Dronacharya was so pleased that he gave Arjuna knowledge of special weapons, and not only that, gave him the benediction that in the ability of archery, you will be unmatched. So this is a very important point for us. It's not enough to say Arjuna just practiced a lot and he became a superior archer, the best in the world. He had received the blessings of his guru. And through that empowerment, the words of his guru became true. He became the topmost archer in the world. He had that innate skill, of course, but there was that extra dint of descending mercy, if you will, in order to render that as an absolute fact. And that's something that in any initiative we do, we should always be seeking the blessings of our guru, our teachers, our mentors, those that inspire us in the spiritual path, because that's whom we're receiving all of our nourishment from. And we'll explore that concept a little bit later in this as well. So another pastime was the marriage of Arjuna and Draupadi. So this is referred to as the Swayamvara, for those of you that are not familiar. So Swayamvara is a large competition where there's usually an eligible lady of royal heritage who gets the opportunity to select her husband. And so there's an assembly of all the eligible bachelors who want to have the opportunity to win her hand in marriage. Now, Draupadi, whom we had explored earlier this month, or in a previous month, October, she had the benediction that she would marry Arjuna. But there's a little bit of a backstory to this. So I mentioned that the Pandavas and the Kurus were more or less rival factions. The Pandavas on the side of Krishna, and the Kurus on the side of adharma, or against dharmic principle, or against religiosity. And so there was a lot of animosity between the two groups. The Kurus were always trying to find ways to kill the Pandavas, and it reached a point where they had told the Pandavas, okay, go to this house, make an official visit there, we've built you this palace, but they had a secret plot to burn it down to kill the 5 brothers. They had escaped, and when they had escaped, they did so in secret to let the Kurus think that they were dead, so reducing some of the pressure. So Arjuna and his brothers were disguised as Brahmins. So if you can imagine these very muscular, warrior-like people going around dressed as Brahmins, or holy people. And then there was this opportunity, they heard about the opportunity to marry Draupadi, and they couldn't pass it up. So they went to this event, they were seated with the other Brahmins, and there was a seemingly impossible task that was set up to win Draupadi's hand in marriage. That seemingly impossible task was to string a very strong, heavy, large bow. So to be able to bring the 2 ends of the bow together, to string it, lift it up, which most of our experiences with archery, that's pretty easy, but these are very heavy, very stiff, very solid bows. And then not only that, but you'll see at the bottom of this image, there's a reflecting pool of water, and at the top, there's a fish and a disc. So the candidate has to string the bow, face down into the pool of water, raise their bow and arrow up, using only the reflection as a guide. There's a tiny hole in that disc above, and they have to shoot the arrow through that tiny hole in the disc and hit the target. Okay. So, needless to say, all of the kings and princes present failed. They all came in boasting of their prowess, their abilities, but only one person was able to even fire the arrow, and that was Duryodhana. He got the arrow through the hole, but narrowly missed the target. So sometimes in these kinds of pastimes, Krishna plays a little bit just to create that anticipation, like, the excitement factor. And so once all of the warrior and administrative class, the Kshatriyas, had failed in their attempt to win Draupadi's hand in marriage, there was a general announcement if anyone else wanted this opportunity. And so Arjuna, he came down and sought the blessings of the Brahmins present. Because again, not only does empowerment from the Guru make things possible, but also seeking the blessings of the devotees is necessary in these endeavors. And so he first sought the blessings of the Brahmins before undertaking this initiative, sought permission to perform this task, and then he not only lifted the bow, which very few could even do, strung it, fired the arrow, and hit the target perfectly in the dead center of the target. And a large battle ensued because the kings and princes, their pride got a little bit hurt. And one thing that's interesting about this pastime is Krishna was personally present there. He was witnessing all this. He and Balaram immediately knew, these are Arjuna and his 4 other brothers. Nobody else could see that through that disguise. And Arjuna, before he picked up the bow, in his mind, he sought the blessings of Krishna. He had prayed to Krishna for the empowerment. So he had already received the empowerment that he was the best archer in the world. But still, it's an important reminder for us that a one-time blessing or benediction is not enough. We have to consciously be remembering where that empowerment comes from. So Arjuna, as Krishna's cousin and his dear friend, he was always conscious of Krishna, always aware of Krishna's presence in his life. And so when he won Draupadi's hand in marriage and this fighting ensued, the kings started to get a little smart, thinking, wait a minute, how is it that he's a Brahmin? Is he really a Brahmin? I think he's not who he says he is. And then at that point, Krishna intervened because he was supportive of his friend and devotee and said, you know what, it doesn't matter. He won Draupadi's hand. No need to inquire about who this person really is. Just go home. And by Krishna's mystic influence, everybody was pacified and they went home. So moving on to another chapter. As the weeks throughout the month go by, I'm sure we'll hear more about this, but there was a period of time, 13 years, where Arjuna and his brothers were in exile. So 12 years officially of exile and 1 year of remaining hidden in the forest. And this was due to some intrigue and trickery to take the kingdom, to steal the kingdom away from the 5 brothers, which had actually become more prosperous than the original kingdom. So they were in exile, and this happens at the end of their 1 year period in waiting, in hiding. So the Kurus were trying to find the 5 brothers because part of the exile was, if we discover you in that 1 year of hidden period, you have to be in the forest for 12 more years. So what better way than to secure the kingdom than to just eliminate the competition and great, we get a bonus 12 years. So they started to deduce through an event that recently happened, the Pandavas are probably in this kingdom called Matsya, led by this king called Virata. And so they first sent an advance party because they wanted to kind of flush out the Pandavas because they had managed to remain hidden for almost an entire year. The crews had searched every town, every village, every place that they could think of and couldn't find them anywhere. Now Bhishma Dev, he was very intelligent, the grandsire of both the Pandavas and Kurus. He said wherever there is people that are tolerant, that are humble, that are charitably disposed, areas that are prosperous, areas that are flourishing in every way possible, know that these 5 brothers are there. And so, okay, that gave them some clue. And then they heard about this miraculous feat where this extremely powerful personality was beaten to death, to a pulp, it's described. And so then the assembled crews thought there's only one person who would do something like that, and that's the second brother, the second Pandava, Bhima, who was renowned for his immense strength. Because in their estimation, there were only about 3 or 4 people in the entire world that could take this king down. So they zeroed in on this kingdom led by Virata, and they first decided, okay, let's steal the cows. Now, obviously, cows are a large source of wealth, especially in the Vedic period, and to divest a kingdom of its wealth means to eliminate the source of everything that's required for fire sacrifice for yagya, which ensures prosperity and the proper maintenance of a kingdom. So they wanted to strike this smaller kingdom at the root. And the Pandavas had assumed different disguises. So 4 of them took different roles in this King Virata's court, as a minister, or as the keeper of the horses, or as the keeper of the cows. And Arjuna had the unique position of being a song and dance teacher for the king's daughter, posing himself as a eunuch. So if you can imagine this very powerful, strong personality, world famous for his military skills, living as a eunuch for a year, teaching song and dance, well, that's pretty amazing. So the 4 brothers, so the Pandavas minus Arjuna, went out with the king to battle Susharma, who had come from the Kurus to take the cows and kind of provoke a battle to see if they could flush out the Pandavas. And Susharma's army was completely routed, completely devastated because of these 4 Pandava brothers. And as per custom, the victors, in this case, King Virata and the Pandavas, stayed overnight in the battlefield. So the Kurus had a strategy. While the army was all distracted on that battlefield, they were going to do an early morning battle on the other side of the kingdom, try to steal the cattle again, and provoke a battle to try to flush out the Pandavas. Because Duryodhana had thought that the 1-year waiting period was not yet over, but the Pandavas and grandfather Bhishma, whom both sides look up to and respect, had both concluded that 1-year period has actually ended now. So there's a little bit of controversy there, never to leave anything clean, black and white. And that's kind of interesting too, because at least I can speak for myself, whenever I desire a particular outcome, I start to see the world with that perspective. So any evidence I can see to back up that there is still time left in that 1-year period, I'm going to support that evidence, selective listening or selective hearing. So this is a prime example of that a neutral, independent authority is concluding that time is up, but they're still saying, well, no, maybe there's something wrong with the calculation, not being able to accept the truth. So the rest of the Kurus came and they attacked the kingdom, and the only person that was even available to counter that attack was King Virata's son, Bhumanjaya. And he was boasting that I can take them down single-handedly. He literally was a one-man army, and he was going to try to take down the whole Kuru dynasty. Who wants to take a guess at how that would have ended? He would have, yes. But Arjuna, as the eunuch, through a series of different communications, stepped in the role as his charioteer. And everybody was saying, you're crazy, you're going to single-handedly face them. But those that knew the eunuch's true identity, as Arjuna, were saying, no problem. He'll be able to take care of it. With this eunuch as the chariot driver, you'll be victorious. And Arjuna, in disguise, had a little bit of fun It's described that when he was presented before the court, he was asking, how can I do this? If you came for a song or a dance, I can do that for you, but driving a chariot? And then he was still given armor because they had faith in the eulogies extolling his capability. And then just to have a little fun, he started pretending like he didn't know how to put on the armor. So like he would drop it with a loud thud, and it was just a total mess from an outsider's perspective. And so then he took the reins, and the two of them drove out of the city to counter this whole army. And as soon as the king's son, Bhumanjaya, saw the Kurus, he froze, peed in his pants probably, because he had never seen an army this big. As far as the eyes could see, it was just a cloud of people led by these world-famous warriors. And so he told Arjuna, I can't do this. Let's turn back. And then he started to run. So he jumped off the chariot and started running back to the kingdom. And Arjuna, he jumped off the chariot, chased this guy down, and told him, okay, if you're not going to do this, we're going to switch spots. You be my chariot driver. And he was very encouraging, very loving throughout this whole exchange. But at the same time, very clear that we're doing this. It's our duty. So no matter the situation, Arjuna always had a clear sense of duty, that you should never abandon the battlefield, and especially not when you're on the side of righteousness, doing what's right, supporting. So they had engaged in this battle as an expression of gratitude because King Virata had housed them for a year, had allowed them to stay under the radar, protecting them from the Kurus. And so this was their way of giving back. So that seed of gratitude was planted in very deep, up to the point of facing a whole host of powerful warriors by yourself. So Arjuna retrieved his weapons, and Bhumanjaya was in awe, like, wow, it's kind of like the starstruck fan, because he had referenced Arjuna so much, and then Arjuna revealed his identity and think like, wow, Arjuna's really here. So he was very excited, and that confidence, that excitement, that empowerment that came from Arjuna, just that presence, recentered Bhumanjaya so that he was very skilled as his chariot driver. And lots of details which I'm not going to get into, but Arjuna was able to defeat and rout Duryodhana's army, sent them fleeing, even after Arjuna was kind of taunting them, saying, hey, come back, what are you running for? You're not supposed to run away. But they're like, peace. And so Arjuna was always seeing this from his perspective as duty and as a servant of Krishna, understanding once again that my ability, my empowerment comes from Krishna, and so I'm doing this by his grace. Now, the climax of the Mahabharata, the Battle of Kurukshetra. So there's a famous scene before the battle commences. Arjuna, he is very worked up. He's eager to get into battle. His Kshatriya or warrior spirit is in full bloom. And he tells Krishna, who has kindly offered to be his chariot driver, so in addition to his best friend, his cousin, Krishna, God himself, has taken the humble position as the chariot driver. And so it's kind of a strange balancing act to see Krishna as your friend, and at the same time, the chariot driver is also a very humble position, and that's God himself taking that. So he instructs Krishna to bring the chariot to the center of the battlefield because I want to size up the competition. I want to see who's come here to fight against me and the army. This is a transition point for Arjuna. He is able to see himself as a servant of Krishna. He is able to see Krishna as the source of his empowerment, his skill, channeled through either the blessings of devotees or through the benediction from his martial guru, Dronacharya. But when attachments get touched, so it's not just a matter of I'm protecting the kingdom, I'm going to defend my friend King Virata from somebody else stealing the cows. It's when I'm now faced with the prospect that it's now life or death. They're not going to run away. it's battle to the finish. So when attachments get touched, then conceptions start to get a little muddy. So how many of us are familiar with Bhagavad-Gita already? Okay. For those that aren't, it's an entire conversation between Krishna, God himself, and Arjuna, his friend, cousin, and a major turning point, his disciple, where Arjuna's bewilderment, his forgetfulness, is removed, where these deep attachments get removed. As an example to all of us, because we all have attachments. And it's really easy to think about what we have in relation to Krishna. I mean, it's not easy in many ways, but it's easier to think of what we have in relation to Krishna as long as it's not attacking the baggage that I really like. So in this case, Arjuna, he had deep family attachment. For example, to his grandfather Bhishma, to his martial teacher Drona. So all of these personalities that had looked after him, loved him, cared for him as he was a youth and growing up, whom he respected, he was now having to face in battle. And it's not that Krishna's message to Arjuna has changed, it's just the situation where Arjuna was confronted to apply that knowledge, that understanding, was now deeper than before. And the examples we looked at earlier, where he was in school shooting a target, understanding that ability comes from Krishna. Okay, that's nice, I got to shoot a target. Or he performed the seemingly impossible feat of firing an arrow to win Draupadi's hand. Or single-handedly defeating the entire Kuru army that had come to destroy the Matsya kingdom. That's all fine and good. That wasn't life and death in that case. He was just doing his duty as a Kshatriya. Now he's being forced to really go to the core of his deep-rooted attachments. And so in this conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, Krishna is gradually helping Arjuna to regain conception of what is truth, what is not truth, what is temporary, what is eternal, what is his duty in this most difficult situation. Now, we all experience situations where our attachments get tested. And Krishna is going to keep testing our attachments in a more and more deep way as we progress along this spiritual path. So it's a continual process of surrender unto Krishna. And not surrender as letting go of all feelings, all wants, all desires. It's how much we are willing to do for the satisfaction of Krishna, for the satisfaction of his devotees. And so this was Arjuna's dilemma. How do I see this in relation to Krishna? How can I let go of this baggage that's keeping me from being a full-fledged servant of Krishna? And luckily for Arjuna, Krishna was personally there. Now, in some respects, we can make the argument that Krishna is also personally there for us, as super soul inside all of us, through Srila Prabhupada's books, through the conversations of the Bhagavad-Gita, through the examples of many, many devotees that we have in Srimad Bhagavatam and other literary works, through the message of the Guru or our spiritual teacher or mentor. So Krishna is there in so many ways. But it's also easy to say, yeah, but that's Krishna. And then it becomes, in a way, an excuse. But that excuse is really getting in the way of us releasing these attachments. So our dilemma, in this case, is how can we always see Krishna's loving hand in every situation? How can we always try to prioritize our relationship with Krishna above all else? And the amazing thing that we've seen in even some of the other examples is when we are conscious of our relationship with Krishna, when we prioritize that relationship with Krishna, Krishna takes care. He takes care of everything. His goal is not to make us miserable and, like squash us under a thumb or something like that. It's a loving hand moving us toward him. He just wants us back. One thing that, just kind of a bit of a tangent, but I think it's just really nice, is there was a period in my life where I was struggling a lot. I had just overcome a failing business, and so finances were really non-existent. And in speaking with my mentor about this, I was pretty bewildered, like, how can this happen? What's up? I'm a devotee. And the response I got was, Krishna doesn't care about your business. He just wants you back. And so, an example for all of us, that no matter what the circumstances look like, seeing that Krishna just wants us to be in that loving relationship with him. And everything else, it's temporary. So when these attachments are released, we can then go to the conclusion of the Bhagavad-Gita, where Krishna is fully conscious of his relationship with Krishna, fully conscious of the entire workings of this material universe, as well as his duty, not just as a Kshatriya, but as a soul in loving service to Krishna. And so he is able to surrender to Krishna and then perform his duty with full heart. And that I want to highlight that full heart, and we'll get to that in a few minutes. But that's a very important concept. So the last verse of the Bhagavad-Gita says, wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will also certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. That is my opinion. So, by itself, Arjuna has skill. But in relation to Krishna, unstoppable. And we can go through our lives like that as well. When we always see Krishna's loving hand, fear is dispelled, ability comes, mercy comes. We can move forward. And we can also take that position as micro Arjunas. We're not that empowered in that way. But we still are in that position as servants of Krishna, and we all have our unique relationships with Krishna. And so there will always certainly be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality when Krishna's in the picture. And so it's important to consider also that when we want mercy, we need to ask for it. So once Arjuna's illusion was dispelled, this is one of my favorite paintings. Arjuna was engaged in the full terror and excitement of battle. And there was a whole story, which I won't get into much detail, but Bhishma, who is renowned for his truthfulness, had taken a vow that, okay, I imbue my ascetic powers, my mystic powers, into these 5 arrows, and I'll use these 5 arrows to kill the 5 Pandavas. And because Bhishma Dev was so virtuous, the Pandavas were just as good as gone, because there was so much power in these 5 arrows. That night, Arjuna, he was lamenting over the loss of one of his sons who had died in the battle earlier that day. And Krishna once again reminded him of rooting him back into his duty as a Kshatriya, as a fighter, and saying, there's something important you need to do. Go to Duryodhana, who had these 5 arrows, and just ask him, because Arjuna had a benediction, because he once saved Duryodhana's life. Just ask him for these 5 arrows. In Arjuna's grief, quickly, he put that aside for his Kshatriya duty, his warrior duty. And he went to visit Duryodhana. Back then, it wasn't this very polarizing battle situation. At the night when the fighting was stopped, people would go to each other's camps, they'd eat together, they'd talk, they'd joke. Nothing personal in that way. So there was no real concern when Arjuna went to Duryodhana's tent, and he asked Duryodhana, you have 5 arrows, I think, right? And Duryodhana, his mouth just dropped in shock. How'd you know I have these 5 arrows? Arjuna says, oh, Krishna told me. It's a good thing to have Krishna as a friend. And so the interesting thing is when Bhishma Dev imbued this power into these 5 arrows, he was smiling, not because, oh, great, the Pandavas are finished, because Bhishma Dev, he loved these 5 brothers for all of their great qualities. He was smiling because he knew that Krishna's on their side, so they're going to win this battle somehow. So I've given all of my power to these 5 arrows. I want to see what Krishna does to stop these arrows from shooting the Pandavas. So, a little bit of fun, a little bit of playfulness in their relationship. And so Bhishma Dev, he also realized, well, I had given my word that these 5 arrows would kill the Pandavas. Now I've heard that the 5 arrows were given away, so I just broke my word, and that's not something I do. I'm famous for my truthfulness. Well, I'm going to fight so ferociously today that I'm going to make Krishna break his word so that he will be forced to enter battle. Krishna had made a promise that he would be an advisor to the Pandavas. He would not pick up arms against the Kuru army. But Bhishma Dev thought he loves Arjuna so much that if Arjuna is threatened, he'll break his word. And that'll be good enough for me, an eye for an eye kind of thing. I break my word, you break your word, we're all good. And so he and the others are fighting so ferociously that Arjuna is in direct threat of being killed that day. And Krishna realizes that Arjuna's under duress. And Arjuna, he's also holding back. He's not able to attack grandfather Bhishma on the right side of this image with full force. And that's not because of the material conception, the weakness of heart that was present at the beginning of the Bhagavad-Gita. It's that when we're fully conscious and in our relationship with Krishna, it's not that we become hard-hearted, that we become stones. Well, I'm just doing my duty, Hari Bol, peace. It's, I'm aware of my duty. Krishna has asked me to do this duty, but it's hard. It doesn't mean I won't do it, but it's just really hard. And so Bhishma Dev was very much loved and respected by Arjuna for his position, for everything he's done to support the Pandavas in their earlier stages of life. That Arjuna couldn't bring himself to exhibit his full strength against Bhishma Dev out of gratitude, out of love for this personality. And so Krishna realized this was going on, and so he thought, okay, I need to intervene. So Krishna jumps off the chariot, takes a wheel from a destroyed chariot on the battlefield, and is about to strike Bhishma Dev. Now Arjuna, again, this very big, world-famous warrior, he jumps off the chariot, chases after Krishna, and then, in a way, it's kind of like holding back no sense of shame, just grabbing Krishna, his charioteer's leg, saying, please don't break your word, please don't break your word. That's Arjuna's love for Krishna. He would get rid of all sense of false prestige just to prevent Krishna from breaking his word. And you know what happened? Just before Krishna was ready to throw that at Bhishma Dev, a few things happened. One, Bhishma Dev smiled because his purpose was achieved. Krishna broke his word. And another thing happened. At the same time, Krishna didn't break his word because he didn't actually throw the chariot wheel, because at that moment, the conches blew, signaling the end of the fighting for the day. So, that's the amazing thing about Krishna. He finds a way to satisfy everyone's desire in a very perfect way. Bhishma Dev wanted a broken word. Arjuna didn't want him to break the word, and he did both. So, it's important to note, though, that Krishna is personally present. He's always guiding Arjuna back to focus, back on the path of understanding this is my duty, this is my relationship with Krishna, everything is coming from Krishna. But now comes the test. So, the test. What do you do when Krishna is not physically there? In our case, what do we do when the spiritual master has physically departed from this world? We've seen that already within ISKCON when Srila Prabhupada physically departed. Of course, he left us a wealth of, through his recordings, through his disciples, through his books. But what do you do when they're not physically there? It becomes a little bit harder to remain focused. The association of devotees is especially important because we're all here to help each other on this journey. And so there's a whole narration of how Krishna and the entire Yadu dynasty left this planet through a series of a curse from some sages and the effect of some intoxicating beverages that were meant for worship but were drunk in large quantities. The entire Yadu dynasty ended up killing each other indiscriminately, only leaving Krishna and Balaram left. And Krishna and Balaram shortly left after that pastime as well. And Arjuna, he traveled to Dwarka and found all this out. And imagine the kind of strength of character required to go to Dwarka to find out most of the relatives that you had known and grown up with are now deceased, are now gone, they've passed, and in the circumstances with which they've passed. And so he was responsible for overseeing the funeral ceremonies, witnessing many of the spouses of these warrior heroes entering the fire as well, willingly, not anything forced. And then after that, returning back to Dwarka and be given the instruction, the remainder of the women, children, and elderly, you have to evacuate them from Dwarka because based on all of these inauspicious signs that we're seeing, Dwarka is going to sink underwater very soon. And it's described as Arjuna was leading the procession to their kingdom, Indraprastha, that the water was already starting to flood the streets of Dwarka. And then they had stopped in a place that was known to have a lot of bandits for the night. Now at this point, Krishna had already physically left this world. And when they had stopped, these bandits saw all of these richly adorned ladies in the party, and so they decided, let's disguise ourselves as cowherd men, and let's lead an attack, steal the women, steal the jewelry, and do whatever we like. And so in the night, they all came, they attacked Arjuna's camp. And Arjuna, he single-handedly defeated the Kuru army. But do you know what happened? He could barely string his bow. He called out saying, I am Arjuna, this is my Gandiva bow. Do you know who I am? How dare you attack us? But he could barely string his bow. This person who had performed impossible tasks couldn't string his own bow, couldn't defend himself or any of his under his protection against a band of robbers who were armed only with sticks, like clubs, and ordinary arrows, not even imbued with any mystic mantras. His attempts to release celestial weapons, these mantra-infused arrows, failed. They didn't work. What happened? Krishna left. In that moment, Arjuna was forgetful of where he was receiving everything from. So all opulence, all victory left. And so this person who single-handedly routed the most powerful army in the world got routed by a bunch of thugs. And Arjuna, for that moment of forgetfulness, also had a lifetime of preparation to remember. After this happened, he realized it's because Krishna is not there. That's why I lost my ability. And so that question is applicable for us. When that time comes when we're expected to stand sort of on our own 2 feet, but also at the same time leaning on the disciplic succession, will I pass that test? And it's not a one-time event. It's not a one-time process of surrender. So Arjuna surrendered to Krishna, accepted Krishna as his guru, as his teacher. But it's an ongoing process. It's like driving a car. How many of us have driven while distracted? So spiritual life is kind of like driving a car in a way. If you take your eyes off the road even one moment, you never know what's going to happen. So it's always very important to consciously make an effort to understand, A, how can I be more in my position of remembrance of Krishna? And B, how can I also create a support network so that we can help each other? So that when, let's say, a particularly inspiring devotee or our guru physically leaves, we're not bereft of any kind of association to help us remain focused on this journey. And that's something that I hope we can take from meditating on Arjuna, his sense of focus, his sense of determination, so that we can successfully make this our last birth. Hare Krishna. I'm sorry I went 2 minutes over. I wasn't there to cut myself off. You're kind. All right, so Thank you very much. And if anyone's here for the very first time, we have a small gift for you in the lobby at the guest services table in the lobby. And for everyone else, dinner is served through these double doors and at the top of the stairs. Please come back down quickly. We have a lovely kirtan set up happening from now until 8 p.m. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And also, please come for the Gita recitation next Saturday. It's always a beautiful event. It's Saturday, 9 a.m. to 12 p.m., followed by a 10-hour kirtan with some visiting devotees who are amazing singers as well. Hare Krishna.
This side, right? Yes, sir. It's not heavy. It's not. But it used to be.
It's on? I'm kind of not excited. Shh.
Rule number one, you have to be in front of this all
Okay.
time. Okay, go little.
Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nityinamine Namaste Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shravadi Kashatra Deshatarine Namaste Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama,